so I thought I would try something new to see if I could make a series talking about monarchs throughout history. I'm starting this project because of my passion for preserving monarchies, so why not inform you, my dear viewer, about monarchs from Earth's history you may or may not know about. Welcome to the Sovereign Profile. If you like this type of video, let me know and I'll be sure to make another one. So, who am I talking about today? Well, for any Hearts of Iron players out there, you may recognise this face. In Hearts of Iron 4, he's just the generic African leader portrait, but his story is much more interesting and his legacy is far greater than you may think. This is Khama III, the king of Bamangwato and the Bangwato people. To understand his story, we must first understand Botswana in the mid to late 1800s. It's the 1870s, the Boer Wars are a couple of decades away, and trade is booming in the Botswana region. The Germans came from the north, and the Dutch and British came from the south. Altogether, they travel into the region to hunt and trade for goods. These goods were controlled by a loose alliance of tribes, all of which were Tswana-speaking people. This is where the story of Khama begins. Khama was a leading force in this trade, and from it he gained wealth as well as an arsenal of guns, horses and wagons imported by Europeans. But one of the biggest exports from Europeans was the most valuable imports of European trade in the eyes of Khama: Christianity. Khama had been baptized into the Lutheran Church in 1860. Now this wouldn't be an issue if it wasn't for Khama's father, Chief Sekoma I. Sekoma was the chief of the Bangwato tribe and believed adamantly in the traditional cultural practices of the Bangwato people. Two prominent practices were the Bogwara and the Mfato. The Bogwara was a rigorous assortment of trials a young man had to go through in order to ascend to manhood. One of these trials was circumcision. These trials were undertaken by a group of men of similar age called a Mfato, similar to that of an army regiment. Remember this for later. Chief Sekoma didn't stop Khama from converting to Christianity, but he certainly wouldn't convert to this foreign invasive religion. Initially all was good, but eventually the differences in beliefs between Khama and his father escalated until the tensions boiled over and Khama escaped an assassination attempt in the Bangwato capital of Shosong. Khama and his supporters fled to the outskirts of the capital. Khama had married a Christian woman named Mbabesi before his exile and broke the Bangwato tradition of taking a second wife due to polygamy being a sin. After another failed assassination attempt, Sekoma was ousted from his position of chief by his brother Macheng. Macheng wasn't different to Sekoma and immediately fell into conflict with Khama and tried his luck at an assassination attempt, which traditionally failed. It would be Khama that would oust Macheng from his position and reinstall his father as chief of the Bangwato as an act of goodwill? Now I don't know about you, but I certainly wouldn't give my dad any power after 2 assassination attempts. But forgiveness is a powerful thing for Christians, so maybe Khama thought it would show his father the error of his ways. Well, the opposite happened. Khama and his supporters fled to the town of Sero, where they readied for war with his father, because Sekoma broke his truce with Khama only months after being reinstalled as chief. Makes you think. After a month of conflict, Shosong fell to Khama's forces. He ousted his father from power and was proclaimed paramount chief of the Bamangwato people. Khama came to power in 1875, and his first act as chief was to abolish the Bogwara, the trial of manhood I mentioned earlier. But Khama did not get rid of the Mfato system. He instead expanded it, making a Mfato group work for free on a 6-month rotation without support from the village. They would build schools, grain silos and other infrastructure that would better the lives of the tribe members. Another change of his was moving the Bamangwato capital to Sero. Now I couldn't find the Bamangwato specifically named out on a map, but this map has Sero on it, so I'm going to assume that the centre region is Bamangwato. Feel free to prove me wrong though. One of the more important reasons for Khama's survival as chief was his cooperation with European powers, the British to be more specific. Khama imported many European innovations to help his tribe compete with the surrounding powers. including ox-drawn ploughs to replace hand ploughing, and wagons to replace sledges. Now, Khama's alliance with the British wasn't driven by a common religion or a sense of camaraderie. It was because the Bamangwato province was being harassed by hostile tribes from Zimbabwe, Dutch Boer settlers from the south, and German forces from the west, all looking to carve out land for themselves. So seeking protection from the British was a no-brainer really, as the British were more likely to make Khama's land a protectorate instead of straight up annexing it. And in 1885, that's exactly what happened. After lobbying and bickering between a pro-protectorate faction, led by a missionary named John Mackenzie, and a pro-annexation faction, led by Cecil Rhodes, the pro-protectorate faction won out, and the Bechuanaland Protectorate was established, with Khama being the most powerful chief within it. But I must reiterate again, Khama did this for his own sovereignty. To illustrate my point, in order to enforce a ban on alcohol within his chiefdom, he expelled all white people from his lands. He wasn't a fan of Europeans. At least that's how I see it. However, 1885 wasn't the only time Khama had to fight for his nation's freedom. In 1895, Cecil Rhodes was still advocating for the annexation of Khama's lands. So Khama and two other chiefs travelled to England and got an audience with Queen Victoria herself, requesting protection from Rhodes, the British South Africa Company, and the Boer settlers moving into the territory. These efforts saw success after the failed Jameson raid took place in 1896 and ruined Cecil's reputation. Cecil was removed from his position of power within the British South Africa Company, and Khama's position within the Bechuanaland Protectorate, as well as the other chiefs that accompanied him, were guaranteed. It was these events that are the reason that the country of Botswana exists to this day. Khama would reign as paramount chief until his death in 1923. And what followed was a cascade of events that forged the modern nation of Botswana to this day. After his death, Khama's son, Sagoma II, ruled for only 2 years, dying in 1925, leaving his throne to his infant son, Seretse II. However, due to his age, Seretse could not rule and the Regency Council was put in place, led by the regent Tushideki, brother of Sagoma II. The plan was to have Tushideki rule Bamangwato in Seretse's name, whilst he got a law education in England. But tensions flared between Seretse and Tushideki after Seretse married a white woman named Ruth Williams in 1948. Bickering and infighting happened all throughout the nation as Tushideki opposed the marriage, as did the older generation of the Bamangwato tribe. Eventually, the colonial authorities chose to banish both men from the region until tensions de-escalated. And de-escalate they did, with Seretse and Tushideki repairing their relationship by the 1960s. Now you'd expect Seretse would take up the mantle as king, but because of a little thing called Western liberalism, he opted to join the Democratic Party of Botswana and would become the first president in 1966. Seretse's son, Seretse Khama Ian Khama, would go on to become the fourth president of Botswana, whilst his brother, Tushideki Khama II, would become the paramount chief as well as a politician currently serving within the Botswana Patriotic Front Party. So although Khama III's descendants didn't form Botswana into the glorious kingdom it could have been, I think I can say with confidence that Khama III helped carve Botswana into becoming the royal republic it turned into today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this type of video, please let me know and I will make another one. But until then, please like and subscribe in order to spread the counter-revolution, and be sure to follow me on Twitter as well. Take care, see you later.